Hello, Pavoni friends. John Hauck here. I want to talk to you today about the AirBuster, Bong's AirBuster. Um, so, what is the AirBuster? What does it do? And one of the questions people ask is why does it need the pressure profiling kit to work? So first off, previous video I talked about spongy pulls, and I guess I would really hope that you take a look at that video before proceeding with this one. And spongy pulls, just real quickly, is when you're pulling the lever down, if you let go of the lever, it pops back up. Why is that? Well, in my previous video, I went into a little bit more detail, but it's essentially the fact that that air is trapped underneath this piston. Usually what happens is hot water comes in from the boiler as you raise the piston lever to the top. Water comes through this channel, through this hole, and then down underneath the piston, and that is your brewing water for your espresso, and of course your finely packed espresso ground. Coffee beans are down here in the portafilter, and when you go to raise the lever, water should fill in here. If the uh, water doesn't displace all the air, the steam in the water doesn't replace all the air, then you'll have air trapped, and the air will basically be floating or sitting right here on top of the water. And so when you pull the lever down and push the piston down, you're compressing that air. And if you let go, then the air can expand and push the piston back up. And you have a low shot volume and kind of a spongy pull, and then a higher risk of pressure being remaining in the group head when you remove the portafilter, and then you kind of have an explosive event where the air comes out very rapidly and blows your wet coffee grounds everywhere, and that's called the Pavoni sneeze, and that's something to be avoided. In today's coffee world, we want to have our brewing water a little bit cooler, keep our keep our group head a little bit cooler, and because of that, we have a little bit more trouble with air trapped under here, just because the water entering here is a little cooler and the steam doesn't displace as much of the air that's in there. So how does the AirBuster work, and what does it do? Well, if you notice here, this is not the stock piston. This is a piston that comes with the pressure profiling kit. The whole point of the pressure profiling kit is to measure how much pressure you're generating in here. And in order to do that, they provide a new piston that has a hole drilled into it. Then they provide this shaft here that has a hole drilled through it, and then they provide these bolts then that go through here. The original non-through hole piston rod is solid through, so you can run a hole all the way through it. Obviously you can't run a hole all the way through this piston rod, so then you need to use these bolts that go in part way into the piston rod, and that's why you can see this is a little tighter to give the bolt room to go inside of there. Then of course this bolt needs to be threaded, so then you need a new fork, and the fork then is fatter than the original one, so, and it's threaded here. And so then of course, well, you can still use the same shaft and handle, but actually you can't, because the shaft needs to be threaded to this new fork, but you can use the same black handle. So on top of here is typically where you would mount your pressure gauge, and what I'm showing here is the Bong's AirBuster that is replacing the pressure gauge in this image here. And what is the active component here is this gold valve, and how that works is it lets the air out. So as you raise the lever, air finds a way out through here. And out to atmosphere. And the way that works is the air goes into here and comes out the top. So that's great to get the air out. But the question is, well, then how do we actually pull a shot? Because if we kept this vented to atmosphere as you go to pull a shot, and you're pushing the lever down, well, then you would imagine a lot of hot water and coffee and all kinds of things would be shooting up through here, and you wouldn't actually be brewing espresso. So the idea is there's a valve here, and this valve basically closes, and this pin goes up. And when the pin goes up, it closes the valve, and it automatically closes. And I've got a video after this one that actually shows it in work in real life. And so that pin closes and blocks the rest of the water from coming out. And so that's essentially it. One thing to note that is if this pin is restricted in coming all the way up for some reason, and you can see here that it kind of goes into this threaded area of the cap. If, for example, let's say you remove the O-ring and this top cap is lower, or you remove this collar here and drive the screw a little bit further down, you're going to prevent that pin from going all the way up. And that's going to prevent the valve from closing. And so you'd say, well, why do you have the possibility of removing this spacer and putting the screw further down so that way it prevents this valve from closing? Well, the whole idea there is intentional. You do that so that way you can back flush or clean out the valve if you ever need to do that. But most of the time you don't want that happening, so keep the rubber gasket in there and keep the spacer in, and that will allow the valve to close. And then when you're done pulling the shot, so we go down here and we pull the shot, as soon as you remove the portafilter and remove any residual pressure that might be in there, then the valve will automatically open up again, the pin will drop, and you will then be ready to pull your next shot and have the AirBuster remove any air that's underneath the piston again. So it's pretty much automatic. You don't have to do anything except for, let me turn off section view. Occasionally you're going to want to remove the cap and reach in here, well, remove the cap with the gasket that will come out with the cap, and of course this will come out too. And then you can either stick a rag down in there or some other way, or you can remove this acorn nut and drain the water that might have collected in there. And then you notice here, now that I've turned section view off, that the pressure gauge that you got with your pressure profiling kit still has a place, because the AirBuster comes with this kind of a T connector here. So this part of the T connector connects to the pressure profiling kit piston. This is the gauge that comes with your pressure profiling kit, so that way you can still use that gauge. It's mounted off to the side, and you can see exactly why that is. And in fact, I like when I putting it in at an angle like this, because when I'm pulling the shot, it gives me a really nice view, and I can see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bar, depending on how much pressure I want. It's very easy to see when you angle it that way. So I hope that's been useful, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, or I've got a link to a Facebook group where you can dialogue with Bong, who invented this, and ask additional questions there. I hope this is useful, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.